I've been traveling around the Corpus Christi area listening to podcasts about literacy. Literacy is a topic we don't often talk about in the state of Texas. We often hear about banning books and taking books off of library shelves rather than putting books into students' hands. As an English professor and an author myself, this is an issue I'm deeply interested in, and I wanted to share some thoughts on how we can start thinking about literacy in a more holistic way. In Hidalgo County, we have a 27% poverty rate and a literacy rate that hovers around 50%, according to the Barbara Bush Foundation for Family Literacy. These two statistics are intertwined. We can't talk about literacy without talking about poverty. When you send a child into a classroom, if they're hungry, if they're sick, if they're coming in with a scarcity mindset, they're not going to be able to read at the same level as their peers. And when they go home, reading is certainly not at the top of their priorities list. I know this because I came from a single-parent, low-income household. I didn't grow up with books in the house, not only because we couldn't afford books, but also because we needed to focus on our next paycheck. We needed to emotionally regulate. I often went into the classroom with a scarcity mindset where it was harder for me to learn compared to my peers. So we can't talk about literacy without talking about poverty. This means talking about getting wraparound services into our local schools, from healthcare to Wi-Fi access to transportation, and then to start thinking about socioeconomics, our social safety net, and of course raising wages and getting higher paying jobs in our region. This is one huge step we need to take. Another big step that we don't often think about as it relates to literacy is reducing screen time. Technology, social media, and the attention economy are huge factors as to why young people nowadays are having a harder time reading. This means having a harder time absorbing information and a harder time getting into states of flow. And this is a serious issue that is still being studied, and it's totally reshaping how students are learning, and why students are learning. We need to take screen time seriously. If big tech isn't going to step in, I think we as educators and parents need to step in by reducing our students' reliance on digital devices and especially social media, which is not only taking time away, it's taking their attention away. Attention is necessary in order to read and to enter states of flow. Now, with those two macro issues discussed, I think we can start talking about educational reform, starting with pre-K. We need to universalize pre-K. We need to expand access to pre-K. That way, young students are gaining access to phonics lessons, storytelling, playtime, making language fun and learning fun. This is a key first step. As students get older, of course, being able to access books at libraries and at home is key, and that's where schools and nonprofits can work together to make sure there are indeed books in libraries and books at home, to where parents can step up and start modeling a reading culture. And we often reduce this to books, but any reading material, from newspapers to magazines to short stories and poems, anything that students are inherently interested in reading is worth getting them interested in at a young age. I'm a proponent of assigning anything, including quote-unquote non-literary texts. When I was a 7th grader and I was mandated to pick up a book for my reading time before English class, I picked up The Sea Wolf by Jack London because the cover looked cool. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that that book was going to open up the gateway to me being an English major and being interested in American literature and writing my own books today. So we need to let students explore at a young age different topics. When college students approach me and say, I don't like reading, I understand that it's the fact that they don't yet know what they're interested in reading. So we need to expand what is possible in the classroom. I think one way we can start addressing this issue is by assigning more Mexican American authors and talking more about local history in our history courses. Just because a text is written by a Mexican American author doesn't mean Mexican American students are automatically going to be interested in it, but it does give them a leg up. It helps them identify with the author and the subject matter, and I think it's a crucial first step in order to assign a more culturally relevant text in our K-12 schools. I wish I would have read Garcia, Sergio Troncoso, and many other Mexican American writers at a much younger age. In addition, I think we need to start talking about reforming the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills toward more applied-based learning, project-based learning, and service learning. That way students can apply their literacy skills in a wide variety of fields, whether it's out in the real world doing service or online being able to spot fake and real information, being able to spot bias. This is a next level skill that is becoming more and more mandatory in order for us to navigate the 21st century. Outside the schools, we need to support our teachers with strong parental engagement programs by bringing parents into the classroom, into the schools. Educators cannot bear the brunt of educating our students alone. We need systemic support from schools, from local nonprofits, from local governments, giving parents a productive seat at the table, not just turning them into advocates, but turning them into collaborators to make sure that when a student gets home, they are indeed continuing their love of learning and love of reading. This is something I lacked as a teenager and I didn't yet get access to until I went to college, where I was surrounded by people who were reading, who were writing, and who loved learning. This is a crucial element of success for our students that we need to work with our local parents on. There's so much more I can talk about, including writing techniques, making writing more accessible. The last thing I'll mention, since I'm from Hidalgo County along the Texas-Mexico border, is we need to work closely with our ELL students. If English isn't your first language, you shouldn't feel set back when it comes to literacy. We need to embrace bilingualism, train early educator bilingual teachers to make sure students whose first language is Spanish don't fall behind, and if anything, being bilingual is a superpower, not a detriment to having strong literacy skills. That is the reality we live with along the Texas-Mexico border, so we can't turn away from it or expect Spanish speakers to just jump into the English language so quickly. Make sure they are reading texts in Spanish and slowly transitioning into English texts, and vice versa. English speakers in the quest to become more bilingual, especially in the 21st century, this is needed, learning how to read Spanish texts as well. That's all to say there's a lot of things we need to talk about and focus on when it comes to literacy. I'll save writing for another video. I need to take off to a meeting, but here are some thoughts about how we can address literacy in the Rio Grande Valley. And I think what starts here can be a model for the rest of the state.